How you doing? This is Lex from MaxFuture.com, and this video is about my upgrading from a 2020 27-inch iMac, which was like the top iMac. It was loaded, completely powerful. So what were the two configurations and costs of my two Macs, like the iMac that I bought in 2020 and the more recent Mac Mini Pro? Well, interestingly enough, okay, the iMac, the 27-inch iMac, I have a screenshot here of how much I paid. I paid $4,000.39, a lot of money. That's because I loaded it up. It had the nano texture glass. It also had the highest processor and most cores, 3.6 gigahertz, 10 core, 10th generation, i9. And then it also had the best AMD GPU, the Radeon Pro 5700 XT with 16 gigabytes. And I also got it with 10 gigabyte Ethernet in it. So, that was very expensive, but, I didn't... I had an iMac from 2010 or 11 that I was using for about 10 years. So anyways, let's now go to the Mac Mini. So the Mac Mini, I got the top configuration. You can see in this shot of what I bought. I got that with the 10 gigabyte Ethernet because I figured I can link it up to the iMac if I want to use the iMac for storage. 2 terabytes of SSD. And I got the top M4 Pro chip with 14 cores, 20-core GPU. And it also came with the Thunderbolt 5 ports, as well as the 64 gigabyte unified memory. So how much did that cost? Well, I paid for that $2,649. I think I think that's how much that configuration costs. So, cheaper, but it doesn't have the screen. Now, I want to talk to you through my upgrading from this 2020 iMac that I had that had an Intel i9 processor. It was very powerful, and I recently upgraded to the new 2020 Mac Mini Pro. So I want to unpack the process and explain why the new Mac Mini Pro is, for me, and I think a lot of other people, a huge leap forward in performance and efficiency. First, let's look at what I upgraded from. What I upgraded from was this, my 2020 iMac, a 27-inch display that is amazing, and it had an i9 Intel processor. I had it loaded with 128 gigabytes of memory, and it had a 2 terabyte SSD storage. Now, this was quite a workhorse in its prime. Its large memory configuration and its reliable performance served me well for a few years. But now I'm transitioning to this new 2020 Mac Mini Pro, which I believe is one of Apple's most compelling releases to date. Now, let me outline some of its specs. This Mac Mini Pro has a 12-core CPU. It has 8 performance cores and 4 efficiency cores, delivering the perfect blend of raw power for demanding tasks and energy-saving performance for lighter usage. Now, in terms of the GPU, it has a 16-core GPU. This is an integrated powerhouse which handles everything from advanced 3D modeling to smooth video playback and intense gaming experiences. Also, the Mac Mini Pro has hardware-accelerated ray tracing. This feature is especially important for content creators and 3D graphics professionals. This real-time ray tracing dramatically enhances rendering, shadows, and lighting, giving a more realistic view in design and gaming. It also has a 16 core neural net engine. Now, this is not Intel. This is Apple's own silicon, and it's exclusive and to Apple's silicon, and it offloads complex machine learning tasks. Whether you're editing photos, working with big data, or using AI-driven applications, this neural engine speeds things up and keeps everything running smoothly. Now, I loaded up this Mac Mini Pro with the most memory that you can add when you buy it from Apple, 64 gigabytes. Now, even though this is less than the iMac's 128 gigabytes that I had, Apple's unified memory architecture is exceptionally efficient. The CPU, GPU, and neural engine can dynamically share the 64 gigabyte pool as needed. Now, you'll likely find my workflows will feel faster and overall, despite the drop in RAM from 128 gigabytes to 64 gigabytes. Now, I decided to get the same storage that I had before, 2 terabytes, because Apple charges a lot, if you buy more and more amounts of storage. Still, it's a generous amount of fast storage, and it'll ensure that I have ample room for applications, documents, and media projects. But significantly, this Mac Mini Pro has Thunderbolt 5. This next generation port offers higher bandwidth, faster data transfers, and support for multiple high resolution displays. If I'm working with large files or planning on expanding my setup with external devices, this Thunderbolt 5 is a game changer. Now, in terms of speed of Thunderbolt 5, it can run an external Thunderbolt 5 SSD pretty much at the same speed as the zipping speed internally of the SSD. Like, I think if you use Blackmagic to sort of score how fast it is, it's going to be 6,000 megabytes per second. So that's the internal speed of the SSD, but with a external Thunderbolt 5 drive, you can get speeds that get close to that. Now, I haven't purchased yet a Thunderbolt 5 drive. I have a Thunderbolt 4 drive, and I'm getting top Thunderbolt 4 speeds for the external drive of 3,000 or 4,000 megabytes per second read and write. So anyways, let's go back. Why did I make the switch? Here are my top reasons. First, the performance gains in Apple Silicon. The Apple Silicon architecture that Apple has in the Mac Mini Pro, which is I believe it's an M4 processor, delivers significant boosts in both the CPU and GPU performance over my Intel-based iMac. And these performance cores chew through resource-intense tasks like high-resolution video editing or large code compilations. And, at the same time, the efficiency cores keep routine tasks from draining power. So it's very efficient. Now, also, I like that Apple and its own processors created this unified memory architecture. Now, you may, think, having my memory go from 128 gigabytes to 64 gigabytes will cause bottlenecks. But in most real-world scenarios, Apple's unified memory is nimble and well optimized, and so users will have experience, overall faster performance, thanks to shorter memory pipelines and better management across the CPU, GPU, and neural engine. But the next reason is, I think, the main reason I wanted to upgrade to an M series Apple processor computer. And I jumped at the Mac Mini Pro for this reason. It's cooler and quieter in operations. Now, my 2020 iMac was a beast. It was very helpful. But what drove me crazy is the fan would speed up and make a lot of noise because that Intel i9 processor gives off a lot of heat. Now, the Mac Mini Pro has a smaller form factor, and its chip design dissipates heat more efficiently, and it's much quieter and cooler. So you don't get that distraction of the loud, fan noise in the background. Now, another reason I got the Mac Mini Pro is that it is very small. They made the newer Mac Minis now are even smaller than the prior Mac Minis, and the reason this is good for me is I'm keeping it on my desk, and right now I'm keeping it next to my iMac, and I'm using the iMac screen for the Mac Mini. I know I'll have another video talking about that, but this way, I can fit it in my desk because it's so small. Now, the other thing about it being a good small model is that later on in the future, let's say 2 or 3 or 4 years down the line, if I upgrade and get another Mac, and let's say an iMac or a Mac Pro, I can use this Mac Mini, which is so small and power efficient, as a server, another like backup computer or renderer for video in my apartment. So, it can be used in the future for stuff like being an additional server that you have in your home that you put, let's say, all your photos or your movies or any other data that you want. Another reason, and I think I talked about this before, is Thunderbolt 5 makes the Mac Mini Pro future-proof because and also you could save money because instead of upgrading to Apple's very expensive SSDs internally, you can instead get cheaper SSDs externally that run on a Thunderbolt 5 case, and that's going to be just as fast as the internal SSD. And so and also you can in the future there's going to be other devices that you can connect that are going to be great with the Thunderbolt 5. The other reason I got the Mac Mini Pro is that Apple now supports machine learning on Macintoshes, and you couldn't really do that before. Machine learning wasn't really good on the Intel Macs, and that's because Apple's GPUs were not NVIDIA GPUs, and most machine learning used NVIDIA's GPUs, and that's because NVIDIA created something called CUDA that works with both PyTorch and TensorFlow that allowed people to use AI machine working. But Apple now has created something where you can use their M processors for machine learning. And so I like to play around with machine learning, and this Mac Mini Pro is going to be very powerful for AI-driven programs, basically. So, look, in short, while my iMac was top of the line in 2020, Apple has made significant leaps in chip engineering and performance optimization with its Apple Silicon line. And I've waited. I passed up the M1, the M2, and the M3, but this M4 and this small Mac Mini Pro design made me want to buy it. And I think it's going to be a better fit for me, particularly in doing creative tasks like editing videos and editing photos compared to the 2020 Intel Mac. That was, by the way, the last Intel iMac that Apple created, my prior Macintosh. Okay, so one of the things that I did to see how much more powerful my Mac Mini Pro is from my 2020 iMac, 27-inch iMac that had the i9 Intel processor, I ran what's called a Geekbench test. Now, Geekbench sort of tests how powerful processors are, and it's been around for a long time. So I used Geekbench 5. Now, my iMac 2020, the single core, just in other words, how powerful the single core processor is, it got a score of 1,244. And now on the Mac Mini Pro, the single core score was 1,599. So, that's about, I don't know, almost 30% more powerful the single core test. So the single core, but when you're doing something really, with a lot of power that you need, like video editing, it's going to use multiple cores. Now, this is where it gets interesting. The multiple score for the iMac 2020 was 7,708, while my Mac Mini Pro's multi-core score was 14,105. So my Mac Mini Pro, in terms of the multi-core score, is almost double as powerful as my iMac. So that's pretty cool. Like I basically, what is it, like 4 years later, I have a Mac that's double as powerful as like the top iMac that was sold in 2020. So anyways, that gives you a sense of how powerful this stuff is. Okay, so Geekbench, though, has another test, I guess that came out, I don't know when, maybe recently in the last few years, as AI has become much more important for computers and machine learning. And so they have a Geekbench AI test that you can run on Macintoshes to see how good they are and how powerful they are for machine learning AI, using it for AI. Now, what's interesting is this Geekbench AI program also runs on the iMac, and it also, as well as the newer M4 Mac Mini Pro. Now, here's what's interesting. Here you can see the scores. So the single processor score for the iMac is 1,052, and the half precision score, no, it's called the single precision score, is 1,052, and the half precision, I don't know what these mean, but basically the scores are 1,052, 795, and 535, the quantized score. Now for the Mac Mini M4 processor blows that away. The single process score is 5,623. The half precision score is 8,800, and the quantized score is 6,820. This is crazy. Like that number 6,820 is maybe 12 times greater than the 535 score for the iMac. And the 8,800 score is more than 8 times greater than that other score for the iMac. And then even the first score is more than 5 times greater. So the Mac Mini Pro is much better for AI than that top Intel i9 processor and AMD GPU that I had in the 2020 iMac. So that's pretty cool. So if you need more advice on switching like I did from an Intel Mac to an M processor Mac, or simply want to reach out on, nerd out on any things involving the Mac, feel free to comment and reach out to me. I'm really enjoying this new setup, and happy computing.